For several years life had been comfortably predictable, even cozy. I had been married to Hannah for 4 or 6 of those years. Even when our connection wasn't perfect, I believed we were in a stable place. My job often demanded a lot from me, pulling me further into my career, while her busy social life sometimes grated on me. But I thought we'd settled into a rhythm, a balance that worked. We still made it a point to spend Saturday nights together, and though there were occasional cracks in our relationship, they seemed small and manageable. Then last weekend happened. Hannah seemed unusually insistent about attending a party her employer was hosting. "Jake, it's nothing serious, just some work friends," she said, brushing off my concern. Her tone felt almost dismissive, like I was a child pestering her over something harmless. "You should come too. It'll be fun," she added, her voice light, almost as though she were promising something she knew she couldn't keep. I agreed to go, convincing myself it was about being supportive. Yet something had felt off about her lately. She seemed distant, spending more time on her phone than usual, often smiling secretively as she texted. When I asked who she was talking to, she would offer vague responses like, "Oh, it's just Emma," or "It's work." At the party, Hannah vanished into the crowd almost immediately. She was always the social butterfly, effortlessly moving from one conversation to the next. I stood there nursing a beer, trying to distract myself, but a gnawing feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. Her behavior felt wrong, not just because she was mingling, but the way she was acting. Her eyes were constantly scanning the room as if looking for someone. I told myself I was just being paranoid, but something inside urged me to follow her. I stepped outside into the cool night air, the soft glow of fairy lights casting long shadows across the yard. At first I didn't see her, but then from the far corner I heard her familiar soft laugh. My heart skipped a beat. There she was, my wife, with a man I didn't recognize. They were standing too close to each other, her hand lightly resting on his chest, his arm casually around her waist. Their heads leaned toward one another, sharing an intimacy that should have been reserved only for us. And then they kissed. A wave of disbelief and hurt flooded over me. My mind screamed for me to turn away, but my body was frozen. I stood there, unable to move, watching as a woman I thought I knew shattered before my eyes. The beer bottle I had been holding slipped from my hand, hitting the ground with a soft thud. Hannah's eyes snapped open, searching the darkness until they landed on me. We locked eyes, hers wide with shock, mine burning with the sting of betrayal. The man beside her looked confused, glancing between us, but I didn't wait for an explanation. I turned and walked away, my chest heavy with a pain I didn't know how to process. She didn't come home that night. The next morning, I stood there stone-faced when she arrived, her face a mess of smeared makeup and tear-streaked cheeks. "Jake, please let me explain," she sobbed. But I wasn't interested in hearing her explanations. I couldn't bring myself to listen to the excuses she was undoubtedly ready to offer. I stood there motionless as she poured out apologies. But when she finally mentioned his name, Brandon from work, something inside me snapped. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a choice, a series of choices she had made over months. Her betrayal wasn't just a single lapse. It was a betrayal of everything we had built together. As she finished her tearful explanation, I found myself packing a bag. "Jake, please," she begged, her voice trembling with panic. I held up my hand, cutting her off. "I need time to think, Hannah. Don't follow me." She stepped aside, her shoulders slumping in defeat, and I walked out the door, stepping into a silence so heavy it felt suffocating. And that was the moment I realized everything had changed. She was sobbing uncontrollably, pleading for me to let her explain. But what was left to explain after 2 months of lies? Ryan shook his head, his face a mixture of disbelief and pity. He took a slow swig of his beer, not even trying to hide his discomfort. "That's messed up, man," he muttered flatly. "I don't even know what to say." We sat in silence, the weight of the moment pressing down on both of us. The television droned on in the background, but neither of us was listening. I could feel Ryan's gaze on me, waiting for me to break the silence, to say something, anything, that would make sense of it all. But I couldn't find the words. Finally, Ryan spoke again, his voice cautious, almost hesitant. I'm not sure what you're going to do. I stared ahead, trying to process everything. I told her to leave, I admitted, my voice hollow. But now everything feels up in the air. Ryan, we've been together for 7 years. It doesn't have to end like this, does it? Ryan didn't answer immediately. He took another sip of his beer, leaned back, and studied me carefully. It doesn't have to be the end, he said, his voice gentle but firm. I'm not saying you should forgive her, but Jake, people make mistakes. Maybe there's something here worth saving. I shook my head, cutting him off. A mistake, sure. Forgetting my birthday or missing a dinner here and there, those were mistakes. But this wasn't a mistake. Here is the entire passage rewritten as a single paragraph, without skipping any words. Ryan, this was a decision, a choice she made repeatedly. Ryan nodded quietly, not pushing the issue any further. He stood up a little later and left, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As the door clicked shut behind him, I sat in the living room staring at the wedding photo on the mantel. Hannah's smile, frozen in time, looked so genuine, her eyes filled with love and promise. In that moment, it felt like a cruel joke, a snapshot of something that no longer existed. I picked up the frame and turned it over. Tomorrow I begin figuring out what came next. But for now, I had to survive the night. Sunday morning hit like a freight train. The silence in the house felt suffocating. I hadn't slept. My thoughts had kept me awake all night, replaying the images of her with Brandon, laughing, kissing, as though I didn't matter. If Hannah thought I'd just accept her sob story and empty apologies, she was gravely mistaken. I needed answers. I walked to the desk in our shared workspace, where her laptop sat. It had always been our laptop, but over time it had become more hers, mostly for work, or so I had thought. I told myself I wasn't crossing any lines. She had already destroyed everything. My trust, my peace. But still, I couldn't stop myself. As the screen lit up, my fingers hovered over the keyboard. What was I even looking for? Evidence? A confession? The first email I opened was dated just a few weeks ago. I can't stop thinking about last night. You're amazing. I'll find a way to see you soon, I promise. My stomach twisted as I scrolled through each message, each one worse than the last. Late-night meetings, hotel stays, excuses she had made, all documented in black and white. Then I found her calendar, filled with fake work events, all arranged to cover their secret rendezvous. The anger that had been simmering since the night before finally boiled over. I slammed the laptop shut and stormed over to a nightstand. There, hidden away in the drawer, was her journal, a leather-bound diary. I flipped through the pages and found her neat cursive written across the paper. I feel alive when I'm with him, Brandon. But the guilt is unbearable. Jake doesn't deserve this. I don't know why I do this. What's wrong with me? The words blurred before me as rage surged to the surface. She felt alive with him? What about me? What about us? I threw the journal back into the drawer, slamming it shut with a force that echoed in the empty house. By evening, I had read every email, every text, every receipt from their secret meetups. It was all there, each betrayal, each lie carefully documented. My phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a message from Hannah. Jake, I can't take this silence. Can we please talk? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Finally, I typed back, not yet. By Monday, the storm inside me had only grown. I wasn't the type to scream or throw things, but Hannah had already taken so much from me. My trust, my peace. When she texted again asking to meet, I agreed. The house. 6 o'clock. Don't be late. She walked in exactly at 6 o'clock, looking like she hadn't slept, her face pale, her smile hesitant. Jake, she began, but my glare silenced her. Sit down, I said coldly. She obeyed without hesitation, her hands nervously fidgeting in her lap. I placed her laptop and journal on the coffee table in front of her. What's this? I asked, my voice flat. Her face drained of color as she looked at the items in front of her. Jake, she gasped, her mouth opening and closing in panic. I slammed the journal onto the table. Admit it. You wrote this, didn't you? I feel alive when I'm with him. She reached for the journal, but I snatched it away before she could touch it. No, you don't get to run from this. You owe me the truth, Hannah. For the next 20 minutes, I laid everything out. Every lie, every betrayal. By the end, she was sobbing into her hands. Why? I demanded, my voice cracking. Why wasn't I enough for you? Through her tears, she whispered, I made a mistake, Jake. I know I did. I shook my head, disgust creeping into my chest. You keep calling it a mistake, but this wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. A choice she made over and over again. Her sobs grew louder, but I felt nothing. There was no anger left, just cold, empty numbness. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But it did, I said, standing up. And now you'll deal with the consequences. Her eyes pleaded with me, desperate. Jake, please don't do this. I shook my head. It's done, Hannah. I'm filing for divorce. Pack your things and leave. This isn't your home anymore. She begged for another hour, but my decision didn't waver. When she finally left, I felt lighter, like I could breathe again. Our life together was over, but I was still standing. And for now, that was enough.